Yeah, thank you. So I think Lena, or who is changing the slide? Yeah, perfect. So also warm welcome from my side. My name is André. I'm I work in the field of real estate consultancy, and there I'm more focused also on sustainable aspects. And there in this field, we consult our clients, which are mostly large-scale investors like pension funds or insurance companies in real estate questions, also regarding sustainability. Maybe next slide. Sorry. And yeah, well, basically on the next slides, I'd like to share with you the results from a study we published this year. And if you're interested in more detailed information, you can scan this QR code here and download the whole study, and you get there the full information, because I think the time slot is limited here, so I will focus on the main aspects. So the study was subsidized by Energie Schweiz, and the goal was to find out whether it is possible to, in the case of a sustainable renovation, to ensure that not only the climate, but also the tenants and owners can benefit at the same time. This means that there will be a reduction in CO2 emission, and at the same time, the tenants can benefit from lower housing costs, and the owner can increase the market value of his property in the best case. So next slide, please. Well, first of all, I would like to show you briefly what are the challenges the owners and tenants are currently facing. Basically, it's also like Christina mentioned already, this owner-tenant dilemma. So on the one hand, you have the owners who should invest in more and more sustainable renovation. Costs. If you imagine, if you have an oil heating replacement, it costs, for example, you can assume 2,500 francs per apartment in an apartment building. If you think about a heat pump, installing a heat pump, and for example, in combination with earth pipes, it costs around 10,000 or even more per apartment. On the other hand, the tenants are also better protected by the tenancy law, and owners are finding it more and more difficult to pass over a part of their investments costs to the tenants. But also at the same time, the tenants are faced with higher energy costs, or they are more dependent on changing energy prices, like the fossil energy prices. And all this is at the moment situated in a real estate market, which is with increasing vacancy rates, and especially in weaker regions, and the growing demand for more and more sustainable apartments and living forms, which leads at the end to the question if a sustainable renovation is profitable at all. So next slide, please. Well, to answer this question, yes, it can be profitable. And in this pilot project, we have submitted a renovation plan for 12 apartment buildings in the German-speaking Switzerland. This means that we have planned an energetic renovation and have calculated in detail what the effects on CO2, the market value, and the housing costs are. With an energetic renovation, I mean a switch to a renewable heating and a better isolation of the envelope. So we're not talking anymore about making an oil heating better or something like this. It's going away from all this fossil stuff. And you can find the results here on the picture. So you can see on the green axis that after this energetic refurbishment, the CO2 emissions are typically about 80% lower than before. In red, you can see that in 11 out of 12 properties, a reduction in housing costs could be achieved. And in gray, you see that in 10 of 12 properties, the market value even could be increased by the energetic renovation. At this point, it is important to note that we have selected properties that are suitable for an energetic renovation. And you see here some impressions of these beautiful buildings we have selected here. These are, it was also interesting that Lena in this questionnaire showed that that around 2/3 of the building part was built before the 1980s. So these are especially these buildings you find in the agglomeration, and these are built in the 60s or 70s, and these are, in general, these are properties which has a high potential to save energy costs. For example, properties which are not well insulated, or and where the tenants must spend a substantial amount for their oil and gas bills. But these are also buildings which have a quite good building fabric. So it's not very sensible to destroy them. It's more, you have to think what could be the next step with this building. And also what was interesting in this study, these were buildings, large buildings and sites, which where the site was also, where it was possible to install a heat pump and, for example, earth pipes on the site. And also the roof space was there to install photovoltaics. What also played an important role was the subsidies, which align the municipalities and the cantons, which we also respected in this study. So the next slide. Well, on this slide, you see basically how the housing costs are changing after the renovation. Well, it's quite easy with the renovation and the switch to renewable heating system, we will save energy costs. And even if there is a certain amount, like the passover of the investments to the existing tenants respected, like here, these 29 francs, in total, the total rent after the renovation is slightly lower than before. So the tenants pay less, and the owners passed on the permitted amount according to the tenancy law. So next slide. Well, this amount, these 29 francs, leads for the owners to a higher net rent on the counterpart. In some of these properties, the owners were also able to generate additional incomes from photovoltaic systems. So, well, until so far, this is quite state of the art, what we are doing every day in our business. So you just calculate what are the costs and what are the effects on the on the revenues, on the energy saving, and so on. And nothing special so far. So next slide, please. But well, in this project, we went a step further and we thought about what would happen in the following years and what happens when there is a change of tenants in a few years. And well, it's quite normal that with natural fluctuation over time, new tenants will move in. And the first thing to remember is that the new residents pay the market rent, which is here in yellow, this one. And this market rent, excuse me, does not depend on the investments or the tenancy law. It's just the rent which is achievable on the market. We also call it the potential rent, and we respect this in our valuation modeling as a very important component. But also for these new tenants, The willingness to pay is defined by the total rent. And we therefore assumed that the saved energy costs, which were these 58 francs per month, could also lead to a higher net rent in the following years, thanks to this energetic renovation. So to sum up, we saw that the existing tenants will pay less after the energetic renovation, even if they live in an apartment which is more sustainable and maybe they have more comfort and so on. And the new tenants, which will come after time, they pay in total the same amount than other tenants in the region, even if they also live in a more sustainable apartment. And all these effects we investigated in our evaluation modeling, and we could prove that even with higher investment costs, like I mentioned before, for this sustainable renovation, the market value increased in the most of the cases. So for the most of our clients, it was really a nice insight, and we had these participants which where they and for them it was really quite interesting to see how the effects were. And already one of our clients who participated in the study will also will realize our suggested renovation plan with all this assumption we did. So the next slide. Well, with this slide, I would like to feed back to the challenges I showed you in the beginning, and that's through an energetic renovation, the owner could achieve comparative advantages with a higher standard and a more sustainable product in a more and more difficult market. So he could even achieve a higher market value and a higher net income, even if these costs are higher, the capex. But also the tenants could profit from lower housing costs and could reduce their dependence on changing energy prices. So under certain circumstances, in these cases, like the initial energy costs, the building fabric or the site and the municipal subsidies, it could lead to a win-win-win situation for the owners, the tenants, and of course for the environment. Thanks.